Okay, so what if I told you that the absolute greatest leadership tool you possess isn't your master's degree, it's not an MBA, and it's not even your decades of industry experience? What if it's actually the exact same mindset you had when you were 7 years old? Let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring a totally paradigm-shifting concept from Jon Antonucci's work on servant-minded leadership. We are focusing specifically on Chapter 13, The Lost Art of Questioning Everything. We're going to uncover how true transformative leadership actually requires us to do something that can feel, honestly, pretty uncomfortable in a corporate setting. We have to reconnect with our inner child's relentless curiosity. So if you've been conditioned to think that getting a leadership role means you suddenly have to have all the answers, well, get ready because we're about to completely upend that perspective. We're going to look at why asking questions is literally the ultimate tool to maintain absolute clarity, avoid those classic leadership traps, and genuinely serve your team. I want you to take a second and just think back to being a 7-year-old. At that age, your absolute undeniable superpower was asking questions, right? Why is the sky blue? Why do we do it this way? Why does that work? As kids, we use the word why to actively navigate and figure out our world. But then, somewhere along the line, we grow up, we enter the professional world, and we just kind of stop. We abandon the habit because we develop this deep-seated fear of looking silly, or worse, looking completely incompetent in front of our peers. I mean, think about it. How often do we sit in a boardroom, someone throws out some brand new 3-letter corporate acronym that literally nobody knows, and we all just nod sagely because we are terrified of looking out of the loop? We start believing that asking questions is a glaring sign of weakness. We protect our egos instead of expanding our understanding. And guys, that becomes incredibly dangerous the exact moment we're handed a leadership role. The author actually shares this really beautiful, grounding story from when he was just 7 years old. He walked over to his neighbor's house feeling all nervous, apologized for bothering him, and just asked a simple question. His neighbor, Mr. McKinley, looked him right in the eye and gave him this profound piece of advice. He said, "You don't need to be sorry for asking a question. That's the way we learn." And honestly, that sentiment is our emotional anchor for everything we're discussing today. If learning inherently requires questions, why in the world do we suddenly stop asking them the second we get a fancy title on our door? Learning, growing, understanding, none of that magically stops just because you got a management promotion or a corner office. In fact, the higher you climb, the more complex the problems get, which means that is exactly when you need to start asking way more questions. Okay, moving into Section 4, the leadership trap, the know-it-all facade of modern leadership. So here's our main antagonist today. It's this rigid, unspoken assumption that a leader must already have everything figured out. It's a massive, incredibly heavy burden to carry, and let's be real, it's completely unrealistic. When we stop asking questions, we stop being present. We just start operating on yesterday's logic and assume we know what's best for the team without ever actually asking them. And a lot of times, leaders fall into this know-it-all trap just because of the totally arbitrary ways they got promoted in the first place. You might have been elevated because, hey, you were the best technical expert, or maybe just the longest-tenured person on the team. Maybe you were literally just the next person up in the hierarchy, or HR urgently needed to hit a staffing quota. Because promotions happen for these functional, non-leadership reasons, newly minted managers get hit with this absolute tidal wave of imposter syndrome. Suddenly you're in charge of your former peers, and you feel this intense pressure to fake it. You put up this massive, impenetrable facade of total certainty, instead of just seeking real clarity about what your new role actually is. Now, over the last few decades, the whole concept of standard servant leadership has unfortunately kind of been hijacked by corporate buzzwords and this huge obsession with ROI, return on investment. It's subtly devolved into this transactional thing like, hey, if I serve my team well, they'll be happier and therefore they'll just produce more output for me. But servant-minded leadership, that restores the original beating heart of the concept. It actively shifts away from that ROI-driven motive and moves entirely toward genuine, authentic, transformational interest. It completely flips the core question. You go from asking, what can I do to get the most for my team, to a much, much deeper challenge. How can I make the biggest impact in the lives of those I'm leading? It requires a fundamental shift in how you actually view the people sitting across the desk from you. The ultimate revelation here is that a servant-minded leader's true superpower is not having a brain stuffed full of all the right answers and perfectly optimized workflows. Not at all. It's having the heart, the courage, and the mindfulness to hold space for others. It's the profound humility of just realizing, hey, I simply don't know what I don't know. To truly care for your team and lead them effectively, you have to be completely willing to ask the right questions, driven by real empathy, rather than just some shallow desire to boost your quarterly productivity metrics. Section 8. Asking, why am I here? Finding clarity in your placement. If we really want to be deeply mindful leaders, we have to start by questioning our very foundations. And that begins with the first of 3 big foundational questions. Why am I here? Honestly questioning your exact placement in your role is incredibly grounding. It forces you to take a critical step back and uncover both the explicit and the hidden implied reasons you were actually chosen. Like, were you brought in to gently maintain a really successful operation, or were you covertly brought in to completely disrupt and fix a toxic culture? Think about it. Imagine this brilliant manager gets hired to shake up a totally stagnant department, but because they never stop to actually ask why they were specifically chosen, they just assume their job is to keep the spreadsheets updated and not rock the boat. They completely miss their true mandate and they fail, all because they blindly accepted the status quo instead of just questioning their placement. Which leads perfectly into Section 10, asking, what is my purpose? Defining your expectations. The crucial transition happens right here. Once you deeply understand exactly why you are in the room, you have to translate that broad placement into an actionable focus. You do that by asking, what is my purpose? Mindful consideration of your purpose lets you strip away all that unnecessary administrative noise that usually just bogs leaders down. When you know your exact purpose, you can clearly communicate incredibly consistent expectations to your staff. And let me tell you, absolutely nothing is more liberating for an employee than a leader who sets a clear, defined expectation. When your team understands exactly how their individual, everyday tasks fit into the big, overarching goal, a massive shift occurs. You completely eliminate the need to constantly hover around and micromanage their every move because everyone is finally aligned, motivated, and pulling in the exact same direction. Section 12, making a real difference, going beyond the job description. Okay, so once your placement and your purpose are clearly defined, you have to ask the third, and honestly, the most transformational question of the whole bunch. How can I make a difference? This is the question that ensures you are actually serving your team rather than just acting like some glorified traffic cop managing workflows. This question pushes you to look way beyond basic organizational quotas, profit margins, and standard annual reviews. It sets a incredibly high, deeply personal expectation to make a genuine, authentic impact in the lives of the people who report to you. It means viewing your team not just as human resources to be optimized, but as complex human beings. Do you actually know what motivates your top performer outside of their paycheck? Do you know what specific roadblock is currently causing your newest hire the most anxiety? Because if you don't, it is absolutely time to ask. Section 14. Question everything to lead, reclaiming your curiosity. As we bring all these really powerful pieces together, we realize a pretty profound truth about modern leadership. Maintaining clarity, it's not a one-and-done event you just magically accomplish at a weekend corporate retreat. No way. It requires a continuous daily rhythm of revelation and inquiry. It requires us to constantly drop our professional egos and just allow ourselves to be that fiercely curious 7-year-old again. There's this classic quote from Robert K. Greenleaf that reminds us, to be a leader, you must be a servant first. But if we are to truly serve first, we have to boldly accept that we do not have all the answers. The precise moment we think we have everything completely figured out is the exact moment we stop effectively leading. Asking relentless questions of ourselves, of our foundational motives, and of our teams is literally the only reliable way to remain mindful and avoid those empty, soul-crushing traps of corporate standardization. So I really want to leave you with this final provocative thought today. To completely break free from traditional paradigms and truly serve your team with authentic, life-changing interest, what assumptions are you going to actively challenge right now? Are you going to question the rigid, boring way your weekly meetings are run? Will you deeply question your own hidden motives for a recent hiring decision? It's time to step fully into your role as a servant-minded leader. Embrace the incredible power of the unknown and start aggressively asking why. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will see you in the next explainer.